I have been seeing a lot of negativity lately regarding this remake, but now that I'm playing through it, I just wanted to explore with you and see if the hate is actually granted, or is it just that people don't really understand some of the nuances of the game that, in my opinion, have been improved or changed from the original. So for that, let's first address what people are hating on the game. But before that, I just gotta say that I'm a huge fan of the original Super Nintendo game. I mean, I have it here complete in box. I have reviewed it in the past, which you can check over here, and I praised the game a lot. That said, the game is far from perfect. I do understand all the issues that the game has, and we'll discuss in this video, which in my opinion I would expect that a remake would actually address and take into consideration for the remake. And I believe that in many cases that actually happened, but in others not so much. There are mainly 4 issues that I see people discussing online. Is the voice acting that bad? Well, to me it's actually a mixed bag. First, the main cast. Randy and Prim, they are really not that great.
Guys! Wait! Whoa!
My dad is infuriating. I'm in charge of my life, not him.
But Popoy, for instance, is awesome. I like her voice so much that I now cannot separate her voice from the little sprite.
What? Why didn't you say so earlier? I'll go there right now.
The intro cinematic is actually superb.
This greedy arrogance angered the gods, who in turn unleashed vicious beasts into the world.
And since now every single NPC is voice acted, there are some good ones and some bad ones. But again, to me it's not 100% bad, it's just a mixed bag. Also, people keep saying that you can fix that by switching it to Japanese voice acting, but really, that one as well is a mixed bag. I mean, I like the Elder, for instance, here.
残念だが仕方ない。ランディよ。この村から出て行ってもらうことにするよ。
But this guy, come on, he sounds like a fucking 40-year-old guy.
ぼやぼやしてたら見つかって村長にまた怒られるぞ。
I mean, it's not that great. To me, I think that the problem relies mostly on the script itself, because it didn't change almost nothing from the original. And whereas before you had your imagination to fill some of those gaps, now since everything is voice acted, you don't have room for that left. I think the game would have benefited way more if the actors would have given them a little bit more freedom to improvise, or have a writer improve upon what they had. I see that because we have new scenes that happen when you go into a hotel and sleep. You can have some sort of retelling of what's happening, and we have banter between the main characters. In that, I mean, although the voice acting, again, especially in Randy and Prim, is just not that great, you can see that the writing is improved a little bit here. Does this mean that the voice acting in general is garbage, as many people are saying online? No, that's just not true. I don't think that at all. Do I believe it could have been much better? Oh my god, you betcha. Oh yes, people are getting crazy about the graphics and how they look like a PS2 game. But do I agree on that? Oh, not really. I mean, a little bit, but not really. It's using the same engine as we saw on the Adventures of Mana game for mobile devices. And I love that remake. They're doing that probably to save money. I do think that the graphics could have looked so much better, of course, but as it stands, I think it captures the essence of the game very well. Now, do I have problems with some of the other things in terms of presentation? Oh yes, I do. For once, the lip sync. Come on, this should have been added to the game.
ぼやぼやしてたら見つかって村長にまた怒られるぞ。
I'm sorry, but this is really distracting. And this is the first scene of the game. This might really put some people off. Lip sync should have been something added and polished before the game was released, for sure. And some other little things that I personally don't understand. First instance here, for instance, in the original game, you are being pushed. And you can imagine that because of the limitations that the hardware had at that point. But it was done exactly the same on this remake. Why don't animate the push? It's just really weird for me, and I think it might be nitpicking, but it's really distracting for me. Other small things that, I mean, doesn't really matter, but to me it does. When you're blown away by the cannon, now you don't have the animation when you fly around the overworld before you land. Why not add that? And why the hell do we have so many loading screens? It loads in every step where the Super Nintendo one used to load, but much worse and actually slower. The game should have been seamless. And to me, that's just shady programming because the graphics are not demanding at all. With that said, are the graphics and presentation in general that bad? Of course not. Although subjective, I still think people are overreacting on this as well. To me, this is another space where it's mostly a mixed bag than just one-sided bad. Now, if there's anything ever subjective, it's of course music. But in this case, I gotta agree. The new soundtrack just doesn't suit the game for me that well. And I really don't understand why they just didn't take the original soundtrack and just orchestrated it. Leave it just as is, but with real instruments and an orchestra. This new retake on that, I personally really don't like at all. But with that said, you don't have to hear it. You can go back to the original soundtrack and play it with that. The game gives you the option to do that. The original soundtrack is a masterpiece as it is. And so, having the option to just go back to it then negates all the issues with people are having with the music. Just don't hear that one. So I believe this one, it's really been overblown in my opinion. The original AI was just not great. They got stuck everywhere and you couldn't move until you unstuck them. Of course, this could have been fixed if you played with friends.
If you had any.
Also, the original game had very comprehensive way to make your AI party behave the way as you needed them to behave. But now we have these options greatly reduced, and to only these very few options that are actually really vague. I mean, what does support Randy really means? It doesn't say. You have to be playing with these options to understand what they do, to try to end up with the results that you kinda want. If not, you can end up like this. I mean, come on, do something, help me out! Yes, you can change something that works for you at the end of the day, but the options just went down for you, and they still get stuck. The only difference now is that you can move all the way around, but do you really want to? I mean, you're going alone.
Like my life.
And yes, you can also play co-op, but in this area as well is a hugely missed opportunity. I mean, why can't you play online with a friend? This to me is one of the biggest disappointments of the whole game. Now I want to talk about some of the details of what people are actually not talking about. In continuing the bad things in terms of gameplay, I have a huge issue actually with the ring system. In the old game, you can see which ring you're accessing of which character because the ring actually floated on the character that you were trying to use it for. But now, the rings are always in the center, you just can't tell which character is that ring from, which is really distracting and really confusing and really frustrating to use. Because now I have to go back and forth to get the one I want to use, which is something that should have been fixed. But in that same venue, you can now actually use hotkeys, like you can set your most used magic, for instance, into whatever hotkey you want, which in its defense, it's a very big improvement. And also, the magic attacks will actually, if you select them, will actually work. Not unlike the old game, in which sometimes you will get the sprite to do a magic and he would just not do it. And it's like, where's my magic attack? Didn't I select that? Making you lose time and sometimes make you lose a battle because of that. But that's fixed now, so, you know, one for another, I guess. The first thing you notice when you start the game is the hit detection compared to the original SNES game is vastly improved. Now you're just not left wondering if I'm going to hit the enemy or not. It just works. And now also you can tell when something is actually dead before you hit it again, because of there's a little animation that happens that is different. That way you can tell that the enemy is already dead, so you don't have to waste a hit on it. Something that in the original game used to happen a lot. In terms of item management, it would have been before that you can only hold up to 4 items at a time of one particular item. And for instance, if you opened up a chest and if you had no more space for that item in particular, the chest would just disappear, leaving you with the feeling that the game should have given you the opportunity of using that item before and get that chest before it disappears. And although that still happens, the game now gives you the option to carry up to 12 items, giving you much better options for item management as before. So this, to me, is actually an improvement. Another big improvement, in my opinion, is the sprinting, because before you used to use all your stamina percentage to run, and you can only run in a straight line, and wouldn't even let you go up the stairs or down the stairs while sprinting. It will just stop. But now, yes, it still uses stamina, but very slowly. And not only that, but once you start running, you can run in every direction you want. Even go up the stairs. This is a huge improvement, and again, this shows that they knew this needed to be fixed. You also now have a mini-map on the corner, which actually can be turned off as well, but come on, leave it on. Although the game was not that hard to move around, it's greatly appreciated to have. But at the same time, I would have wished that the game would have fixed the attack loops that you can get yourself into, where you can't do anything about it until you die. And it happens a lot, and it's still very annoying. Also, you still cannot tell which equipment is better when trying to buy until you already bought it. Why was this not fixed? This is beyond me. And again, you can kinda tell what item is better because of how much they're worth, and because generally every new area you find, the equipment there is gonna be better than what you have. But if you leave the game, for instance, for a long while and you come back to it, you can get confused a little bit on it. And in my opinion, this is something really that should have been added to the game. But at the same time, now you can see profiles of enemies, for instance, weapons, which is a nice touch. It doesn't do anything really, but again, it's a nice gesture.
One thing I forgot to say during the presentation section here is that we can see once we upgrade our weapons are actually reflected in-game. It's a kind of a nice touch to see actually. It would have been better if we could have seen this happen as well with the armor, but you know, whatever. Although we do have a couple of outfits there that were given to you if you pre-ordered the game. Meow. Though, another issue talking about the weapons is that improving said weapons can be actually a chore, because in the original game you can clearly see which weapon you can upgrade because you have an orb for it, because look at that, that's highlighted there. But in the new game, they are not highlighted. So you have to scroll through them all to see for which one you actually have an orb, or unless you remember. This is baffling to me. I don't understand why this happened. Another big annoyance in the game is that it's crashed on me before several times now, and in some cases a lot of progress was lost because of that. This to me is unacceptable. It needs to be patched. And where are my risque books? I couldn't make them happen. I tried, believe me. Are the risque books still there? I mean, minor thing, but come on, just those small details that make the original game great. And also, why the fuck do we only have 2 slots to save? Even the original has 4, double what the one that we have now has. It's ridiculous. Come on, we need to have as many, at least the original 4. We can have so much more now. As I'm sure you have been noticing by now, it seems to me that the remake did fucked up in some things, but some things were actually very much improved. So the game leaves you with this mixed bag feeling as a result. Is it that bad? No, it's not. People are just being silly saying that. Some people are saying that this remake is actually way worse than the original, or that it's the worst remake of all time, and that's just not true. Overall, I like this remake.
Is it worth $40? Probably not. It's probably more of a $15 game than anything else. But that said, I'm still hopeful that a lot of these issues that we talked about here can be patched in the future and add stuff like online co-op, for instance. I mean, I have hopes for that, but don't believe the hype. If you're a Secret of Mana fan, you already have this game. And if you're on the fences, I would say just wait for the price to drop a little bit, but still get it. It's still Secret of Mana, one of the greatest action RPGs of all times. And so, thanks for watching Gokado's Retro Reviews, and hasta la próxima.